So, all right. Well, today's topic is pricing strategies that get homes sold faster. Obviously, right now, and this is such an important conversation for our current market, right? Right now, it's so important to you understand that if you take a listing that's way overpriced, it is not selling, right? And I know when the market changed last time, I was really, really strict on not taking overpriced listings, not taking listings that I couldn't fulfill the service because two reasons. One, I look like a schmuck. Two, I don't get paid. Like if I'm going to look like a schmuck, at least pay me, right? and, um, and there's nothing worse than waiting for a listing to sell. So I'm gonna start with Catherine because she was on first, and then we'll go to Pete and Dave and Cameron. I said Cameron. I never say Cameron. Cam. Um, but Catherine, talk to us about you do a lot of business. How do you price homes? But more importantly, a home's been sitting on the market for 2 weeks or a month with no action. What are you doing to move it forward to that? Because that's the problem. It's not the first 2 weeks or a month, although it is on your initial pricing. But what are you doing after that fact too?
Mhm. Okay, so in terms of pricing my home, I typically way underprice it for the past year. And I think I've been showing you what I'm doing in terms of showing during my listing presentation all the homes I have sold, which sold between 4 days to 12 days were in escrow. And I show what was the original price and then how much more money I was able to get for the properties. And it really works amazingly well. So I would say 90% of my listings do sell. They are in escrow between 4 to 12 days. So for a property which is like 500K, I underprice it 50K. And for 1 million, I underprice it 100K. And then for 2 million, I underprice it 150K, I will say. And 90% of the time, I get multiple offers and I'm able to work them up where I end up over the last comps. At least 60% of the time, I end up over the last comps or definitely at the comp. So it really, really, really works. And I feel to have the seller, agree to go much lower. Obviously, most of them, they look at me like I'm crazy, you know. This is really helpful. So keep track of the homes you sell. And if you have not been selling them, just look at other homes which have been on the market and have been selling for much more than what they were priced at originally, and just have something tangible to show your clients. And of course, you have to explain what I tell them. I said, if you don't do this, you will literally have 0 person coming to the open house, or maybe one neighbor and one buyer, and you have no realtor booking appointments to show your home. This is just our reality, at least in San Diego County, it's our reality. So I'm very strong at telling them, if we don't get people to physically come to look at your beautiful home, we have no chance to get offers, definitely not multiple offers. So you'll be just chasing the market down. It's not going to sell for 2, 3, 4 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, who knows? So what would you prefer? And they are like worried, like, well, what about if we don't get offers at the last comps? And I explained, first of all, you don't have to accept any offers. And the reality is that I will be doing my best to work them. But if after a week we don't have offers, I up the price to the last comp sold comp price. And when people call me, realtors or buyers call me, why did you up the price? I explain that, and often it's the case that I did get offers around that price, but the terms were not the right one. It was contingent, or so I just kind of find ways to explain why I upped the price. So that's what I do if I don't get offers right away. In terms of if my listing have been on for a month or 2 months, I do like change the photos. I try to kind of move things around, maybe change the remarks in some ways. But after 2 months, I expire the listing and then put it back fresh, new, um, the next day. So that's what I do personally. And of course, I keep trying to do open house every weekend, do marketing, social media. Every listing for my first open house, I sent postcards in the neighborhood, about 1,000, and it's great because then you get some neighbors, but it brings activity and energy in the open house, and people are like, "Oh, it's busy. We need to be strong with our offers." Obviously, they're getting a lot of activity, so that's what I do.
And do you get pushback from the sellers when you're low, uh, um, listing it 50,000 below, 100,000 below market?
Yeah, of course. At first, they're truly looking at me like I'm out of my mind. But once I showed them my true data, and here it's like my first one, it was 176K over asking, 155K over asking, 72K over asking, and I show them how they actually sold over the comps. Then they just trust me. So I'm able to make it happen. I would say 99% of the time my seller end up trusting me, but originally they are like, whoa. But if you tell them you don't have to accept anything you don't want to accept, it's up to you, and I will just work. If it takes a month or 2 months to get to the price, we'll work it this way. But hopefully you'll be one of my clients who in just 4 to 12 days are in escrow. And I'll be able to get multiple offers and work them up. And honestly, it has worked. 90% of the time, it has worked.
Interesting. Interesting. Cool. Pete, what are you doing? What are you doing up front and after your listings aren't selling? What are you doing?
No, I love that. I love the strategy that Catherine had. Just keep in mind, you guys, there's a lot of different strategies. The problem is that the sellers right now are 6 months behind, the buyers are 6 months ahead. So every single market is feeling the same type of uneasiness, I call it, to their markets. Inventory is building. People are getting showings, but they're not getting people to put pen to paper. So you have to be creative. And I think when we're doing this, Catherine's idea is great because she's showing the sellers right off the bat all the success she's had by using this strategy. Selling isn't telling, selling is showing. You have to show it. So I think that's a really big thing. What I do is when I go to price it, I try to get out in front of the market like she does too, especially right now. A lot of times when I list properties, I price it based on terms. So I'll use the lowest terms possible. If you're in an area where there's a lot of VA buyers, even better, you can do no money down and just show the monthly payment on the principal and interest with the VA loan and funding fee. I usually don't put taxes and insurance into it, but that usually motivates people to call me, and then I explain to them how that works. I'm getting a lot of feedback, Mitch. I don't know if it's somebody is muted or something. But that's what I do. When I go to list you guys, of course, I sit down, but the number one question that I ask people is, what's important to you? That's my number one question. What's important to you? And then after they answer that, my second question is, what else is important to you? And then my third question is, what else is important to you? And they give me insight on what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish, because everybody has different goals and different timelines. Some people will say, oh, I don't care if I sell it for a year, I have nowhere to go. Or some people say, I have to move in the next 30 days. So every scenario is different. And I think you have to understand that going into it. As far as pricing, I would say right now, I would really have everybody try Catherine's strategy. I think that's super important because that is where you're going to get the most bang for the buck. If you get out in front of it, it's going to create FOMO, it's going to create value, and most buyers will not walk away from value. Right now, everybody in all the high-end markets, I'm speaking about luxury, things are still moving, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people are on pause, right? They're on pause because of the economy, they're on pause because of the rates, they're on pause because of their life, they're on pause because of economic conditions, world conditions. You know, there's a lot of things that make people pause, and that's the type of market we're in right now. So how do you break out of that? You break out of that through pricing. Make no mistake about it. 97% of the issues is with pricing. It's not necessarily with marketing. You know, you have certain listings that have functional obsolescence or economic obsolescence. And if you don't know what that is, make sure you chat GPT that today and get an explanation. But that's the verbiage you should be using when you're having conversations with clients who want to sell. I mean, I think that's really, really important. Another thing that I do is I write right into the contract on all my listings something called the 6115. And I want all you guys to start using this, the 6115. So I pre-frame to the sellers on the market conditions and how things are going, and that the market is going in spurts. So I say, look, this is the price we have agreed upon to try it at. It's not an exact science. You're only as good as your last sale and your last comp, you know, and everybody can get that information. But I put right into the listing contract 6115. So what does that acronym stand for? 6 showings, 1 offer, or 15 days. Whatever comes first, we adjust the price after that accordingly. So if you have 6 showings and you have no offers, you have to make a move. If you have 1 offer and it doesn't come together, that offer is going to tell you where the market is at. If you go 15 days without 6 showings and 1 offer, you have to make a move, and you have to relaunch it and remarket it to the marketplace, because if you don't, it's going to end up costing them a lot of equity. Guys, I have right now 13 listings. 9 of them were not moving. It takes 10 seconds of courage to have a conversation with a seller. 10 seconds of courage. And you have to be adamant about it, and you have to be confident about it, and you have to educate them. And if you do it the right way, you get responses like this, like I did yesterday from one of my sellers who I am representing 6 of his listings right now. He said, I give you full permission to do whatever you think is best to get these sold in the next 30 days. You can price them anywhere you want. You can market them any way you want. I need them off my plate in 30 days. And when you have that type of control and those types of conversations, you have to keep it moving. What are they going to say? No, I don't want to change the price. Then say I'm not the right fit, because I'm not going to stand by and have you blame me when it doesn't sell. You have to have conversations, you guys, and you always give options. Here are your options. Option number 1, we get out in front of the market and we try to get it sold. Option number 2, you stay status quo, it doesn't sell, somebody else takes their equity off the market, off the sale of their house, and that dictates your equity position. So you're giving up your equity position. Or step 3, you can rent the house, and we'll try it down the only 3 steps. Right? So that's what you have to talk to people about. That's how I speak with people. Those are the conversations I have. I had one this morning. I send new CMAs every 15 days. This is what's happening. This is what the competition's doing. This is what's pending. This is what's closed. This is what's contingent, because you're going to see a lot of contingent buyers. They have to sell something to buy something. But I got news for you guys. Is everybody listening? You might want to write this down. Contingent buyers, 90% of the time, are not real buyers. They're dreamers. And the only way you should take a contingent buyer is if you can drill down on their listing and dictate what their price should be. Do not take a contingent buyer because they tell you their house is great and that they're going to price it at this price. unless it's in that contract saying you have to get your house on the market in the next 72 hours at this price. Otherwise, we will not take the contingent offer. Make sure you always put in a 24-hour offer so that you can still market the property as active. And you have to write that in there because you're going to get that scenario a lot of times. My tip of the day is really work with that other agent, whoever's listing that house. Better yet, if you get the listing, it's even better. You can control it. But if you don't, make sure you have a heart-to-heart conversation with that other agent and help them out. But you have to put eyes on that house. You have to really dictate what that price should be. Otherwise, you'll be sitting there, and what it's going to establish with your sellers is a fake understanding of the market, because people who have nothing to lose and they're trying to get a certain price for their house, they're going to try to dictate the terms. And what happens if they come in, they offer you full price right off the bat? And then they change their price. They say, hey, I'm going to put my house on the market for $2 million. You do the comps and say, okay, it's worth between 2 and 2.1. That sounds right. Let's price it at $1,999,999. And then a week later, they put it on the market. They say, just kidding, we're coming on at 2.5. It's a waste of time. But the problem is you've established with your sellers that they're willing to pay full price to get their house. Now they think they should be getting full price from any buyer. And what happens after that? All the showings you have, they look at the house, they don't go for it. It just sits there. And the market is trending the other way. So those are my tips. 6115 is the best tip to do. Write it into the contract. Don't let them say, oh yeah, I'll do that, or we'll address that when we come to it. No, write it in. This is one of my conditions to get you the most money out of it.
How do you write that in the contract? Like what specifically?
I take a pen. Yeah, I take a pen, and in the contract, I write it in. I write that if 6 showings, 1 offer, or 15 days, whatever comes up first, we will adjust the price based on where the market is at that point, and that the seller automatically agrees to that. That's it.
Okay.
Because I say to people, look, this isn't narcissism. I'm not trying to have my face on a sign yard. I want to have my sign say sold or done deal. I don't want to have my face on it saying active. That's not what I'm trying to do, because then they'll nitpick everything, you guys. When it's not selling, they'll say somebody left the light on in the den. Somebody forgot to shut off the outside lights. Somebody didn't do this. Somebody didn't show up. All these things, that's what happens. All you have to do is try it. Don't have any fear. Say you want to get the most money, right? In the shortest period of time with the least amount of headaches. I'm a pro. I'm showing you what you need to do. I've been successful 2,778 times. I've been successful. The people who haven't listened to me, they haven't been successful. So I have a question for you. Do you want to be successful, or do you want to be unsuccessful? That's it.
I want to be successful.
I do too. C'est magnifique. And if I had a French accent, I would get every listing. That's it. I'm already convinced to that.
A day.
Those are my tips for today, you guys. Put them into action. Like I said, I went 8 for 8 last week on price reductions because the market here is shifting very quickly in Nashville. It's shifting also in San Diego. It's shifting in Vegas. It's shifting in Florida. It's shifting everywhere. The problem is that we're seeing is the comps that are even 30 days back don't tell the true market. Right. So you have people reflecting on comps that are 6 months old, or 90 days old, or 60 days old, or 30 days old. And I'm telling you, this market is changing by the week. So you have to be out in front of that. You have to set the market. Either you're going to set the market, or the market's going to set you up for failure. One of the two.
Yep. Good stuff.
So you got to have that conversation, because other people will come in and buy the listing. Some of the greatest listings I've ever taken are the ones that I didn't initially get.
Right.
Or I didn't initially take, I should say.
Yeah, they do come back to you eventually, don't they? Yeah. In price reductions, we've done that many times over the years. if I'm going to do, if it's nobody shows it, I always use 2 weeks, Pete. Nobody shows it in 2 weeks, we're reducing the price. And we'll talk. I'll talk about it a little more when I get my turn. Mr. Lawson.
Well, and also, let me just touch upon that real fast, you guys. And when you go to do a price reduction, you got to gauge the market. What I do sometimes, if I get to close to 20 days and, say I talk to them on 15 days and they want to think about it, or I have another showing, or somebody is coming back for a showing, and I wait a little bit longer, I never go past 20. If it goes to 20, then I'll reset the listing. And what I mean by that is I will expire the listing and I'll relist it at the new price to erase the days on market. And most MLSs do allow that. Some don't, but most of them do. You have to reset it, because if the house gets age condition, it's going to end up costing you a lot of money. And what I mean by age condition is where it sits there and the public says, all right, it's been on 48 days. What's wrong with it? Maybe the roof's gone. Maybe it has a bad foundation. Maybe the plumbing stinks. Maybe it needs all new electrical. What is it? Why hasn't anybody bought it? So that's how you have to look at it, with the psychology of a buyer buying right now. They are looking for value. If they get value, they will do it. If they don't get value, they pass it by.
Yeah, good stuff. And
sorry, I'm fired up.
Yeah, and just a quickie on the MLSs. Like, my MLS won't allow you to do that. My MLS, you have to expire for 30 days before they'll let you. You can relist it, but it's going to show the old numbers. It actually has two numbers. It has one number running for the new realtor, and then the old number up. But if you let it expire for 30 days, and then the other challenge you have with that is, the day after it expires, or that day, they're going to get 264 phone calls saying, we know why Pete Sultan didn't sell, because Pete doesn't know what he doesn't. Pete doesn't know real estate. That's what they do. They
all say it. You guys, listen, they're all going to call. You got to pre-frame that to your sellers ahead of time and say, look, you're going to get bombarded with calls. It's important for you to know that I don't hand out any of your personal information. People use cross directories to call you, call your uncle, call your cousin, call your brother, and they're going to tell you that they have a buyer. But guess what? Just tell them to call me, and I'll get their buyer in. I guarantee you they will not call me because they don't have a buyer. They are lying to you. I know that's a harsh word, but that's reality. So let's stick to our plan and let's do this. If they had a buyer, they would have already shown it, right? They're trying to get listings. That's it. But you have to, if you go past 20, 25 days in this market, you're dead. You're dead. You're dead in the water. I'm not saying that on certain occasions something will miraculously sell. It's a possibility because it's going in spurts, but typically it's a dead listing. And you have to pre-frame that to people. Say, we're going to get it set. We're going to launch it. We're going to get the most money out of it. This is how we're going to execute it. If we don't do that, we're dead.
All right, Mr. Lawson.
All right. Well, thanks, Pete, and Catherine as well. I'm in a very unique situation where I'm at because we're in Park City and we're in Salt Lake City. And those two markets, I use the example, they're like apples and pineapples, right? They're so different. So in Park City, it's more of a luxury market. Our market in Park City is pretty flat. It's not really a buyer's market or a seller's market, but prices are still going up at 2, 3, 4%. And I'm on the stats committee. We had the third quarter stats last week, and I know the numbers and I use the numbers. And if you don't know your numbers, then you're an amateur. You're not a professional real estate agent. The other thing is, now then went down in Salt Lake, believe it or not, our market down there, we're still seeing multiple offers. And the difference is in Utah, in Park City, you know how many people need a roof over their head? It's 0, right? But in Salt Lake, people are buying homes to live in. And so that's a different market. But at the end of the day, pricing, positioning, and price reductions are really the key. I don't know who said it, 97%. I say every property can be sold in a week or a day if you price it right. But a few of the techniques that I use, I'll just share a few of them. Maybe you can resonate because I think these are things that work in any market. When you have a conversation with somebody, first of all, like Pete says, I do 21 days. I tell people that we have to do 21. I'm going to take that 6-1-15. I love that concept. Thanks, Pete. I've always used 21 days. And with price reductions, the way I've always taught it in the coaching is I tell people, look, if you're an agent, first of all, you have to ask the client, Mitch, is it okay if I'm 100% honest with you? And and sometimes they don't want to hear it, but they always say yes, right? And so once they say yes, now they've given you permission to be honest with them. Here's a pricing strategy that I do though, and you might want to write this down. If you have in 21 days, if you have very little or no showings, your price on your home is 10, you need a 10% price reduction. If you've gotten a fair amount of offers, but I'm sorry, if you got a fair amount of showings, but no offers, you're 5%. And then the other thing is when you're getting price reductions, write this down. Rule number 1. And by the way, there's only one rule. Okay. And that is this: do not take very small price reductions. You see, it's pretty easy to get the first price reduction. And I tell agents it's very difficult. It's almost like pulling teeth with no Novocaine to get the second price reduction. So don't waste, if it's $1.5 million, don't go, oh, we'll do a $25,000 price reduction. You just tell them, that's not going to matter. And if they don't want to take it, just say, okay, no problem. Then we'll just leave it and then call back a week later and then go back to your minimum standards. Okay. The other thing is you have to explain that price reductions are a marketing tool. A lot of people think price reductions are bad, but personally, I think price reductions, it's a really good marketing tool. And why? Because what happens when a new listing gets a price reduction on Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com, Realty.com, all of those websites, it gets moved back up to the top, right? It allows you to do another full round of marketing to everybody. It allows you to call any of the buyers agents that showed the house. Lots of times that in the MLS or through Showing Time or whatever system, sometimes they'll get emails with that. Another absolutely fabulous tool is if you're using eXp Luxury. Now, if you're not at eXp Luxury, you can just listen, but you won't understand. But as you know, if you're at eXp Luxury, for all of us that are, you have an opportunity for putting properties over $1 million. And in a lot of our markets, in Park City, how many homes there are for sale under $1 million? 0, right? Now there are in Salt Lake, but the thing is, on a lot of those, that the eXp Luxury, the first thing it does, it helps you get listings. Hands down, one of the best ways to get listings. But what people don't understand is also one of the best ways to get price reductions. So when I said to you, Mitch, when I was getting ready to list your property, Mitch, would it be okay if I marketed your home, on the Wall Street Journal, Barron's, Robb Report, Market Watch, Unique Homes, Mansion Global, Upmarket, there's 74 other key international markets, over 104 publications. Would it be okay if I marketed on those? And only 100% of the people say yes. And then I say, great. And then every weekend, we're going to send you those, and you're going to be able to see your ad on all of those properties of your home. And the best part is, Mitch, you're going to see how many people looked at your property in most all of those sites, and you're actually going to be able to click on it and see it, right? So that is preparing people, and boy, do they love it. But here's the key, and this is where people miss out. So then after 21 days, I call Mitch. Mitch, is it okay if I be honest with you? He says, yes. And we're talking about everything else, but we go, look, on the, Barron's, we got, 45 showings market. I mean, in the number, you bring it up, it's shown right there. We got 45 here, 30, 82, 51, 63, so on. So we've got, in 3 weeks, we got 321 showings. And these are like first time showings. And you know what? These are the wealthiest people in the country that are looking on these sites. Now that's the good news. The bad news, not one of them wrote an offer. And that tells me that now is the time for us to reposition your property. So guys, you got to use that. This is off kind of a side thing, but you got to understand when you get properties, when you have that buyer that's come by with the buyer's agent on one of your listings 2 times, 3 times, they're dinking around, you think they're going to write an offer, but you can't get the offer. There's no law against the seller writing an offer to the buyer. I call it a reverse offer. I've done it for 20 years. So if you got a buyer's agent and their client and you've been there and you know that they're close, right? And then you go to your seller, would it be okay if we wrote a reverse offer? What is that? Well, that's just you setting the terms that you're willing to sell your house for. So it's $1.5 million. So what's the lowest price you'll go? Okay, 1.4. Good, we'll put that in. What's the time frames that you need in order to move? What are the due diligence? What's the earnest money? What is all that stuff? And then what we do is we present it to the buyer's agent. The vast majority of them have never seen it. You have to teach them on it. But at the end of the day, and you can just say, buyer's agent, take this to your client. If they hit that acceptance button, we're under contract. Okay. So those are just some of the things that I do. Pricing strategies. I'm going to ask a question. So anybody want to answer? If you're going to list a house at, I don't know, $1,475,000, $1,499,000, $1,500,000, $1,525,000, what do you think is the right number to list it at?
I know the answer, so I'm not going to say it. It's always $1.5 million.
It's $1.5 million, right? Now we've been taught all our life to list it at $1,499,950, right? The thing is, guys, that's fine until there's this thing called the internet, right? And it doesn't work because if you list a property at $1,495,000, anybody looking from $1 million to $1.5 million will see it. Anyone that's looking at $1.5 million to $2 million won't see it. And then I explain, and if they say I want to list it at $1,495,000 or whatever, I say I want to go to $1.5 million. I explain to them and I say, we get more people to look at your home when it's $1.5 million to $2 million than when it's $1 million to $1.5 million. Why? Because the people that are looking from $1 million to $1.5 million, they want to buy on the low end of that range, not the high end. And the 1.5 to 2 million, we're going to be positioned we will be in that search the lowest price home. The other thing I do is I suggest, when I have hard conversations and there's no offers, nothing's happening, and somebody's, why don't you get an offer? You can be a little bold, and you got to say this kind of gently but firmly, that you tell the seller, at this point, you're the highest bidder on your home and you're the buyer at this price. And that can be a little bit rough, but there's some other things. But I I really don't want to take any more time, so that's just what I thought I want, or what I wanted to share. So thanks.
I just want to touch on what you said, Dave, with regards to pricing, because it's like before you said that, I highlighted that on my. Go ahead.
Oh, you did. And the thing is, go on any of those sites, gang, and go look and go see if you can put 1,495,000. You can't. Everything, it's all categorized, right? So you have to go, what's your low and what's your high, and it's all round numbers. So go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, because I want to tell a quick story on that, and then I'll go to you, Cam, because I just want to talk while it's relevant. So I go to a listing appointment with one of my agents a couple of years ago. It's $1 million condo. And I always like to find out who I'm up against. And if I'm good enough at what I do, which I usually am, I can get out of who they've already met with. So this guy happened to be, in fact, kind of funny. His name's Dr. Watts, and he does pacemakers. I just find that really funny. But anyways, that's funny. It's kind of weird. But anyway, so we go in there, and he told me who he was working with. I won't mention the name because probably she might see this. And I love this woman he's against. Like if I had to pick a person in this business that I truly respect and love that's local, she would be the person. And I said to the doctor, I said, well, what did she tell you to list at? She said, $999, $999. I said, let me explain the difference between someone who's a marketing person and someone who's just a real thing. I go, I absolutely adore her. She's one of the best in the business, but there's a difference. For $1, in this case, $1, she gave up 50% of your marketing. He's like, what do you mean? I go, people search in your price point between 500 and a million and 1,000,000 and 1.5. I go, anybody looking from 1,000,000 to 1.5 will never see your property. This is exactly what you just said there. From 500 to 1,000,000, right? You're the highest price listing in that market. Let me ask you a question, Mr. Seller. We're going to go look for a house for you. Do you want to pay the most amount of money you can afford or the least amount of money? Well, least. And by the way, 100% say least. No one's ever said I want to spend the most amount of money possible, ever. Even Elon Musk didn't say that. And so I said, but here's the cool thing. In the 1,000,000 to 1.5, you are now the lowest price in that property. You're going to get the more views. And literally, this is exactly how it went. I said that, and he goes, where do I sign? That was the end of our conversation. It was over at that point. Pricing is so important. So I'll get into a little more detail on that too when we're done. But Dave, that is probably the most important thing that everybody needs to learn today is how to value a home, how to price a home. It's all based on how people search for homes, and the whole mentality of like, yeah, a $500,000 home, $499.9. I'm like, what do you think? It's a $9.95 product that you can buy for under $10. It doesn't work that way. All right, Cam, you got bud.
That was a good one. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more too. This topic here is what I believe I am the expert on. And I say that because I've been able to navigate and go through multiple markets that have had these same downturns. Now, Pete, I loved how earlier you were saying that you have some homes going on the market for 45 days or 100 days. Like, ooh, scary. We have homes down here that have been on the market 700 days now. Imagine if you're a buyer and you see a home that's been on the market 800 days. Now, in fairness, those same homes have come down over $100,000, maybe $200,000 in price over those 700 days, but they're chasing the market downwards. And as the market continues to progress, if it does continue to progress in the way that it is or that it has down here, this information that I'm going to give you here in a little bit is going to change your business when you're doing pricing strategy. Because what I have found, and this is just recently, in the last 60 days, we've taken 20 listings. 13 of the listings are either pending or they have already closed. And we're excited. It's awesome. It's ripping and roaring down here for us because we're using these pricing strategies so that we can educate. That's what we're doing. We're educating the owners of what's really going on, because the truth is they just don't know. They're still looking at Zillow. They're still looking at wherever, talking to their advisors on financials, but they don't really know what's going on down here in this market. And what I want to really kind of bring up is that with this process, with the listing process, there's two phases that you need to work through on every single listing, right? And the first phase is, does the owner want to hire you as their agent? Do they want to work with you, right? That's about building rapport. That's about having statistics, having a great pre-marketing package, all of that. Once they've decided that they want to work with you, they want to use you as their representation, then the second phase is then we need to price your home for it to sell, right? And it's really important to completely separate those two phases when you go into the listing process, because if you try to do them all at once, you're going to trip up over yourself on one or the other. Either the price that you initially give they don't like, or maybe they're not fully committed to working with you, so that you can't educate them properly and help them or guide them to the price that actually is going to cause their home to sell, right? So the first step is, will they want to work with you? The first phase. And that is pre-qualification. And to do pre-qualification, you guys, you need two things. One is you need more listing appointments. So you need to be out there generating more leads and setting more appointments. And two, you need to be asking a lot of questions. When you do decide, when the seller does decide to have you come out and do a listing presentation, you need to be hyper vigilant on making sure that that seller is willing and able to sell the property. Now, like I said, down here in our market, we have 30, 35, maybe even 40% price reductions from the peak in 2023. So there are some people that physically can't sell. We have a lot of short sales coming up, and those are going to be challenges for certain people. But as agents and as professionals, we can't be spending our time on trying to help people that we can't help. There's nothing we can do. We don't control the market. We all know that. But what we can do is we can help, we can educate, we can guide those people towards the success that they're trying to have with selling their homes. So the question I've always asked, and this is if you're not going to want to get deep into it, the number one question that you need to be asking your sellers in the pre-listing, pre-qualification stage is, well, tell me what would happen if this home didn't sell? And down here, because like Dave was saying in Park City there, people here don't really need to buy homes. They're not living in them. Most of them, this is their third, fourth, fifth home, or it's their 15th investment property. So not everybody is feeling that pain that they have to sell the property. Some people want to sell the property. It's a fantasy land. And if they could get what they wanted for it, they'd let it go. Well, that's just not the case anymore. That has changed. We all know that. But you need to help them understand that they're not able to do that. What we've been talking about, or everybody here's talked about this call, which has been fantastic, you guys. These are all different strategies that we are all using, right? And Catherine, I love that what you were talking about there, underpricing like 20%. Mitch and Pete, you guys, these are all different strategies, and you need to start trying these in your business to see which one kind of vibes with you or which one gels with your business. But once you have a strategy, you guys, that makes you the expert. Okay, let me say that again. Once you have a strategy, you are now the expert. Well, the sellers aren't the expert. They don't have a strategy. That's what they're hiring you for. So once you are, in their mind, the expert, and you've done that by providing a strategy that is either working or that you believe will work for them, right? We all believe our strategy will work, or we should be changing our strategy. But once you provide them that strategy and you explain it to them in a way that makes sense, now you, in their eyes, are the expert. And now you can move forward with pricing. You can move forward with term. You are the person that they want to work with. So having that initial strategy it's imperative. And I actually like to call it a secret. When I go in my listing presentations, I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to give you guys a little secret on how we sold 651 homes this year. Is that okay? And it's important to ask them for permission, you guys. This is basic communication skills, but you need to, is that okay so that I can tell you this secret? Well, how we are selling homes in this market, and I'm going to explain this to you, is we are taking the market value. Okay. So that is what the market, current actives, current solds, all of that. We're taking the market value and we are pricing our homes at 80 to 90% of that value. And let me explain why we're doing that. Okay. And when you do this, you are able to guide them down a path that you're not trying to tell them that their home is now worth 70,000 less than they bought it here 2 years ago, or 150,000 less than they bought it. You're not trying to convince them that they are wrong and you are right. You are trying to educate them on what exactly is going on in the market so that they can make the choice on where the home should be priced. Because in my 18 years of experience, I've never been able to convince someone that it's worth less than they believe it is. If they think it's worth more and they're stuck on it being worth more, you're not going to be able to just show them some CMAs and be like, no, your home's worth $500,000 less. In my opinion, most people are very they believe they're right. So we have to make them right. We just have to change what they think is right. Does that make sense, everyone? You're educating, you're helping, you're guiding them down the path of what it'll actually take for them to get the result that they want. Now, as Catherine said, sometimes people are going to he and ha, and they'll say that that's not going to work. They don't like that strategy, whatever it may be. Then you need to go back to those pre-qualification questions of, like I said, you said that if this home didn't sell, that would cause you huge problems, right? Well, I have a lot of experience. We're selling hundreds and hundreds of homes this year in this market. And I can confidently tell you, just like Pete says, I can confidently tell you that if you don't price this property correctly, this home's not going to sell. We're not going to get any activity. We won't get any showings. And that's actually going to hurt you even more in the end of the day. And that's not what we want, correct? With all of that said, there's going to be some times that you go on these different listing appointments and you have sellers that are dead set on the fact that they want to price their home overpriced because whatever reason it may be. And that is up to you to decide if you actually want to take on a home that can't be sold, right? There will be times that you go to a listing appointment and you walk out of that listing appointment, not because you didn't get the listing, but because you chose not to take an overpriced house because it takes hours, it takes weeks out of your life. Not only that, but you lose your hair, you go gray. I mean, it's miserable when you overprice a home in a downward trending market because one, everyone's ticked off, everyone's upset, and you're not going to actually get the results you want. And you know that going into it. So real quick, how is market value determined? How are we pricing homes? We use a calculator. It's our next gen CMA calculator. And what that does is it takes active prices and sold prices of comparable homes, and it divides those within the assessed value of the home. So we use our county's tax assessor to give us a baseline. And then for every single home that we're going out on, we are using that baseline, and we're just doing simple division, you guys, of what is the active homes. It gives us a percentage, right? 130, 140% active list price compared to the assessed value. If you divide them, you get a percentage. And then what are the sold homes? And for 18 years now, you guys, the sold homes are always 20% in terms of the multiplication or the division. They're always 20% less. So you can clearly outline and show people, well, you guys, your home is assessed at $1 million. Other homes that are assessed at $1 million, this one sold for 125, this one sold for 127, this one sold for 13. Now you can see the ones that are currently active, right? They're assessed at $1 million as well. And this one's listed at 155, 165, 17. Can you see why they're not selling? And it's very simple pricing strategy that you can show anyone, and then you're able to educate them and lead them down the path of going, well, if I want to sell my home, it has to be closer to this percentage of the assessed value versus the sale price or the active price. That is how we determine market value. Now, with that said, we are taking all of our listings at 80 to 90% of that market value. So we are underpricing even what that calculation comes up to. We have to go up even lower than that, because if we don't, you're not going to be able to sell the homes. We are the expert. We're telling you confidently that if you don't price this home properly, you're going to be up just like those ones that I was talking about that have been on the market 700, 800 days. And I show them that, right? I show them, look, there's homes that have been on the market 2 years. What if you don't sell this home in 2 years? How would that affect you and your family? You ask these tough questions, you lead with confidence, and you're going to find that the people, the tone and their whole demeanor towards, them being the expert and you're here just to service them changes, and you actually become the expert, the educator. You're going to lead them to the point where they sell their home. What else do I got for you real quick? I know I got a couple more people. So, price reductions at the listing, because I am the expert and I tell them what to expect. And I say, hey, listen, this is a tough market. We know that, you know this, we know this. If we don't get any action, we need to reduce the price. Do you agree? And they all say, yeah, of course. Great. So what I want to do is I want to sign a price reduction at the time of taking the listing, and we are going to date it for 10 days in the future. So we don't have to go through this in 10 days. That way, if we're not getting the action, we're not getting the activity on this property, and we're not receiving any offers, we need to go and start reducing the price immediately, because the longer that we wait, the more we're actually going to lose, because we're in a declining market. Does that make sense? And that is how we handle the very first big price reduction is that we have it done up front. You're already doing your listing presentation. You've already established yourself as the expert. You've already kind of handled all of their objections and made them feel more comfortable. And then you can start leading them down the path of this is what's going to have to happen if we don't. Now, if we get offers and everything, we're going to sell it as high as we can. But I'm the expert and I can foresee that this is not going to end up exactly like we want. And I want to make sure that I can get your home sold. Because if we don't, we're going to go, and this is really important, we're going to have you have all that pain that you told me would happen if we didn't sell the home, right? And you got to continuously go back to their motivation. Motivated sellers in these kind of markets still sell. Non-motivated sellers will sit and sit and sit and sit and sit. So don't feel like you have to take every listing. If you feel that way, you need to go get more listing appointments. If you need help with that, we have, we've talked about how to get more listing appointments, but you need to up your volume. That way you're not desperate. When you're not desperate, you can lead from education. And that way you can show people, educate people, and let them decide that you are the person to hire. And this is the price that's going to get the home sold. If you don't do those things, you guys are going to be fighting an uphill battle, right? It's just this market, at least the market here in Southwest Florida. If you're going to try to price homes incorrectly, you are going to be miserable. You're going to have sellers that are mad. You're going to have homes that sit on the market and don't sell. If you do it correctly and you present yourself as the leader and you present yourself as the expert, they're going to listen to you and then they're going to be able to sell their homes. And like I said, we've had 13 sales in the last 2 months just on these homes that were overpriced to begin with. We come in, use this strategy, reduce the price, and they go pending like that. So that's my start. That's my secret. That's the secret.
And Cam, you should have said, don't be attached to the outcome.
Yeah, guys. The outcome is that if you get an overpriced listing, at least here in our markets, the outcome is you're going to pull your hair out. You're going to go gray. You're going to go bald like Mitch. Sorry, Mitch. But you're going to want to never do real estate again. If you get correctly priced homes, they're going to sell just like this. And then when you go to your next listing appointment, you can brag that you sold 13 homes in the last 60 days because your strategy is so much better than everyone else. Up your confidence even more. And before you know it, they only want to work with you. You're the only person in the area selling homes like you're selling, all because of how you position yourself at that initial listing presentation of, like you said, Dave, not being desperate.
All right, Randy, you're up, bud.
Randy, you're muted.
Thanks. So my audience is investors mainly. I do have retail clients here and there, but mainly most of my clients are investors. So my conversations are a bit different, but also at the same time, some similar to what P was saying, like asking their really the goal, right? What are they trying to achieve, where they're at currently. And I go deep into their situation currently. If they're putting their flip property on the market in this type of a market, I want to know, what's your runway? What is your break-even point? How much time do we actually have? What is your holding cost? And if some of them can actually wait potentially, till January, mid-January to end up getting the price they want, maybe that's a better option if we don't get any offers, as we get into the holiday season. So then we would take the property off the market mid-December and come back fresh in the second week of January. Not everybody can do that. So everything is going to be very custom to their situation. Some, I've even had to, agree to take the property off the market and then consider even doing helping them, now that I have access to funding and I have a funding division, help them refinance their hard money into a DSCR loan so they can hold on to it and ride it out so they don't lose $100,000, right? So maybe they're losing $1,000 a month instead of losing $100,000 today, right? And wait for the market to shift or maybe hold on to it long term, and then the rental market will help them because it does tend to increase year after year. So these are the conversations that I'm having, and I'm very flexible with my clients, right? My investor clients, I have to be flexible. And this is also why when I meet with my, investor clients, I tell them I am flexible from the beginning. If we need to remove the listing off the market at any point for any reason, we are totally cool. We are not attached, even though we might sign a 6-month listing agreement. I'm very flexible in canceling because I understand what you're trying to achieve. If you have to hold on to it because of the market shift and you're going to lose a lot of money, let's do that. And this is why I ask my investors to reimburse me for my marketing. So the way I structure my listing agreements with my investors, that I have a exclusive listing pricing just for investors, which is less than what I charge on retail. So I don't do a 2.5% for my investor clients that I would do on a retail side. I have a reduced investor commission structure. However, they pay for marketing, and I give them a whole menu of the things that I would recommend from my menu of marketing based on where we are in the market, based on the property that they have. And they give me the approval. Do you want me to implement this $1,000 marketing strategy that would include this, and this? And they say yes, awesome. I go and implement that marketing strategy, and then I get reimbursed at closing for my marketing that I've done. If we cancel the listing, they reimburse me for the marketing. So it just removes all the friction that some agents might have when they're putting a property on the market, when the seller tells you, Randy, I might have to keep the house if I don't get a certain price. How many agents can truthfully sit in front of that seller and say, that's amazing, I'm going to put $1,000 or $2,000 into marketing for your property that I don't think it's going to sell? Come on, guys. No one should, because you're lying. You're not going to spend $2,000 to market a house that you know deep in your heart will not sell at the price they need. Now, can I then test the market if I have an agreement with my investor client that, hey, let's try. I can never say never. You never know. Let's put it in the market, and if it doesn't happen, then reimburse me for my marketing. Boom. That's how I remove the awkwardness from the conversation when I'm sitting with an investor that might have to keep the property eventually after 2 months of trying. So that's the way I approach it. And then everything else you guys said, I also obviously apply, making sure the price is right and all that stuff. One thing I don't know if someone said this because I wasn't able to listen the whole time, is I think Mitch said this a while ago, and I love this, is I will reduce the price every week if I have to by like $100, right? Why? Because I just want to be in the inbox of the consumer, right? And they'll get an email. Oh, price reduction, price reduction, price reduction, right? And then the people that have saved the search criteria that fits into my listing, they will literally get an email every week about my property. And you never know what's happening in people's lives, right? They might completely forget about my house, and then the week that they get it on that Friday, they're like, oh wait, I wanted to see this home. Great, they just reduced the price. They don't even realize I only reduced it by $100, right? So it's just, that's another way just to get in front of more people. However, you can also time certain things. Like when the rates dropped right in September, right around Labor Day weekend, I purposely canceled, I think two or three listings, took them off the market, and came back 3 days later. Now, find out from your MLS about the rules around it, but we are allowed to cancel the listing. I get the broker to sign off on the cancellation of the listing. I have to redo my listing documents, right? So it's a lot more work on me, but I know that can have a huge impact on selling the property. So we relisted the property right in September, the first week of September, guys, and we put both of those properties under contract. Why? Because it also tricks the market, right? Because the consumer on Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, most of them they're going to see as a new listing. It will show up always as a new listing in their inbox, and days on market is going to show 0 unless they scroll all the way to the bottom, and most people don't scroll to the bottom to see their listing history. So it works. So if you have to, I would probably implement the canceling and relisting after about 60 to 90 days in a slower market, right? You don't want to do too much, but you do what you got to do, right? It's more work. And if you plan it strategically, if you see rates dropping at the same time, and that's what I was also going after, I said, okay, school started, that issue is off the table, right? So mid-August, we're going to cancel, and rates were dropping. So it was like this perfect convergence for us, and we got our properties sold.
Okay, we were out of time here, but I'm going to give you one tip before I hang up because we got to hang this up. Expectations. It's the most important thing that you do is set the expectation correctly. When I have a seller that fights me on price, I put them in the car and I take them to other listings that they're going to compete with. And I say, is this kitchen better than your kitchen? No. Well, why do you think your house is worth more than that house? Is this 400 square feet bigger, better than your house? And if you take them through that, I've done that several times with sellers, is I take them on a buyer's tour because I need them to see what their competition is. It's not about, look, it's the only home in the entire area for sale. It's not hard, but we're in a buyer's market right now in almost the entire country. And if you're not thinking like a buyer, acting like a buyer in your brain, your listings are not selling. Pretty simple. I got more stuff, but we're out of time. Sorry, 2 minutes past. So I will talk to you guys all next week. Have a good one, guys.
Thanks, Mitchie. Bye-bye.
Merci beaucoup. Au revoir tout le monde. À bientôt.